So what's up guys, today we're talking about avoiding demoralization in training, and we're gonna go over how I avoid demoralization, and we're going to go over how you can just use general methods and develop methods for yourself to avoid demoralization. So first of all, how do you avoid demoralization? What are the methods to avoid demoralization? Now, there's a bunch of methods that I'm going to talk about that you can use to avoid demoralization, and then you can develop your own methods on top of these that I'm talking about. I'm sure I won't mention like everything on top of my head in this video that I could come up with. There's a bunch of ways you can, and it's very individual what one person finds very motivating to avoid the demoralization effect or moralizing. So you have to kind of find your individual thing, and I can recommend some methods here and talk about some methods, but not everything has to be like on point where you agree with me. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. You can use something else that you find. This is just what I use and some general methods that are like common to use for avoiding demoralization in training. And you can apply this to life to an extent for us as well, to an extent. Kind of training and life goes very hand in hand, I feel, when it comes to just like avoiding these kind of things, and it can help you. And having good moralization in training can help you in your life in general because you feel better. So first of all, in training, especially when you start out, you have to focus on the small wins, and as a beginner you're going to make a lot of gains and you can focus on those. And for beginners, that's one simple way, is just focus on the small gains and develop that, basically that mindset and discipline from the beginning. That's for the beginners. So like get used to going to the gym a few times a week, then a little bit more and a little bit more, and then you're going to develop that better discipline, which is going to allow you to avoid demoralization because you're just going to go, or make your training enjoyable enough that you enjoy going, make it fun. That's something very important. Discipline can be developed in other ways other than just going to the gym as well, and it can come from other things. But I think as far as training, just getting used to training is going to develop the discipline, and that's going to help you avoid a lot of demoralization. Even if you're demoralized, you'll probably go because you have the discipline of it. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend that I use a lot myself. Now, motivation from external sources. So basically these could be like motivation videos, maybe it's somebody you like watching on YouTube. Really anything from an external source that's motivating to you, you should use it. And it could literally just be anything, and that's pretty much it. Like, just use some external sources for motivation. Develop a strong mindset. This is something else a lot talked about in the noble natty community, and in general I would say in lifting to an extent. It's a mindset thing, as Eric would say. It's important to have that mindset of never giving up, and it's important to develop that mindset if you don't have it. Basically, like, mediocrity is not okay, and just going for it, you know? Because I feel like a lot of people lack the mindset to keep going, and they kind of slack off. But I think once you start enjoying training and seeing gains and all these other things, at some point it becomes such an integral part of your life that you cannot stop anymore, or you don't want to stop. So you don't really need motivation at all to go because you want to go. That's the point you want to get to, so that when you're at the beginning stages where you're kind of demoralized and so on, that's where you really need to focus on building all these different parts and using these different things to help you get to the point where you're always motivated, basically. Or well, yeah, pretty much always motivated to an extent, or at least you have the discipline to go. Personally, for me, what I do for these methods is I use pretty much all of the above mentioned methods, and I developed myself like that. Other than that, I pretty much just run on motivation, discipline, and the mindset. I don't really like consider like training a burden or something I don't want to do. It's actually what I enjoy. You should also consider lessening the amount of dopamine you get from social media and things like that, which is going to help with making training seem more of a fun activity when the other activities you do aren't giving you a lot of dopamine. So any kind of addictions, maybe video games, prawn, etc., stuff like that, give that away, and then you'll be more motivated to go because it's more fun. It's not that you're getting so much dopamine all the time. Now I wanted to talk about intermediate and advanced people who have made a lot of gains and they might be demoralized by the lack of gains. I think at that point you need to look at your training and dial in everything when it comes to your training to make the most gains so that you keep being motivated by the gains. But I see a lot of these intermediates who kind of stop making progress at some point and then they kind of get demoralized and they think they need to hop on gear and things like that, but it's usually because they haven't dialed in their training and they're not learning anything new, etc. And so they get demoralized because of not making gains as an intermediate anymore. And that's where a lot of pitfalls come for intermediates. For beginners, it's easy to give them advice on this, but if you're intermediate like me or even advanced, you're pretty much going to have to use some of these above mentioned methods that even beginners use, maybe like motivation, and at that point you're gonna have to dial in the training completely, dial in every other aspect like sleep, nutrition, getting your vitamins in, micronutrients, etc. Like you have to dial everything in pretty much at that point once you're like late intermediate advanced. Otherwise you're gonna struggle to make proper gains to an extent. You can make gains of course, but I would say it's important to basically focus and make sure that you have everything dialed in before you start complaining and being demoralized about lack of progress. But I feel like a lot of people don't realize that they haven't dialed in everything properly, or they don't even realize that they're training improperly and they're not learning enough anyhow. And I think one important part as well is remember why you actually started lifting and training. Remember those reasons, remember your whys, and those will always keep you in good morals basically. That is going to allow you to stay sharp and keep going even if you don't feel like it. I always keep those things in mind, and you can always think about use your mind to regenerate motivation, maybe during training or before it. So that's one way to go about it. Anyhow, in conclusion, do all the steps mentioned or methods mentioned, or try them out for yourself, develop your own methods. You don't have to agree with my methods that I mentioned here. I think I mentioned the most important things that you need to avoid demoralization, and feel free to leave comments if I forgot something or you think there should be something else added into this video. That's fine. Feel free to leave them in comments if there's some good ideas, because that's going to allow other people to get something out of it as well. Now, thank you for watching the video, and see you in the next video. If there's a will, there's a way to achieve.